Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So, Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya to all of you. In continuation of our classes on the Buddha and his Dhamma, today we are going to continue to study the book 4 and the part 3 of the book 4 and the sub-part 7, which is titled as On Wisdom, Justice and Good Company. So we have covered about 6 sub-parts so far, and this is the 7th. This is going to be a long read as we do with this section. I'm going to read it through and then going to come back to various verses of this particular subsection. So I'm going to begin to start reading the text, because I think the most of the text in this section is self-explanatory, and we need little explanation by the way of clearing any confusion thereof. So I begin to read subpart 7 on wisdom, justice, and good company. So you see, the title itself, is about good company, and in Buddhism it is called the friendship with good, or kalyan mitrata, good friendship, or the word here is kalyan mitrata. And on wisdom we know prajna, and justice we of course know justice in terms of the key the aspect of Baba Saheb's movement. And we have seen that in the previous section, Baba Ambedkar has described Buddha Dhamma as the perfect justice. So this trinity of wisdom, justice, and good company, I think it goes hand in hand, and that's how the title has this importance connotation. So let me begin with the verse number 1. Be wise, be just, and choose good company. This is very clear, straightforward, the Buddhist way of life. This is the Buddhist way of life. Verse number 3, if you see a man who shows you what is to be avoided, who administers reproofs and is intelligent, follow that wise man as you would one who tells of hidden treasures. It will be better, not worse, for him who follows him. Self-explanatory, but we will come back to this verse again. Let him admonish, let him teach, let him forbid what is improper. He will be beloved of the good, by the bad he will be hated. Verse number 5, do not have evildoers for friends. Do not have low people for friends. Have virtuous people for friends. Have for friends the best of men. Okay. 6, he who drinks in the Dhamma lives happily, with a serene mind. The sage rejoices always in the Dhamma as preached by the elect. Elect means the disciples of the Buddha. Well makers lead the water wherever they like. Fletchers bend the arrow. Fletchers, of course, are the arrow makers. Carpenters bend a log of wood. Wise people fashion themselves. Wise people, after they have listened to the Dhamma, become serene like a deep, smooth, and still lake. Verse number 10, good men indeed walk warily under all circumstances. Good men speak not out of a desire for sensual gratification. Whether touched by happiness or sorrow, wise people never appear elated or depressed. Verse number 11, it is sweet as honey, so thinks the fool, while as yet the evil has not ripened. But when the evil ripens, the fool comes to grief. Verse number 12, a fool does not know when he commits his evil deeds, but a wicked man burns by his own deeds as he burned by fire. Verse number 13, long is the night for him who is awake. Long is a mile to him who is tired. Long is life to foolish who do not know the true Dhamma. If a traveler does not meet with one who is his better or his equal, let him firstly firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with the fool. 15. These sons belong to me, and this wealth belong to me. With such thoughts, a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself. How much less son and wealth? Straightway from Dhammapada, very beautiful Gatha from Dhammapada. The fool who knows his foolishness is wise, at least so far, but a fool who thinks himself wise is called a fool indeed. If a fool be associated with a wise man, even all his life, he will perceive the truth as little as a spoon perceives the taste of soup. If an intelligent man be associated for 1 minute only with a wise man, he will soon perceive the truth as the tongue perceives the taste of soup. Fools of poor understanding have themselves for their greatest enemies, for they do evil deeds which bear bitter fruits. Verse number 20. That deed is not well done of which a man must repent, and the reward of which he receives crying and with a tearful face. No, that deed is well done of which a man does not repent, and the reward of which he receives gladly and cheerfully. As long as the evil deed done does not bear fruit, the fool thinks it is like honey. But when it ripens, then the fool suffers grief. And when the evil deed, after it has become known, turns to sorrow for the fool, then it destroys his bright lot, nay, it cleaves his head. Verse number 24. Let the fool wish for a false reputation, for precedence among the bhikshus, for lordship in the convents, for worship among other people. Verse number 25. A man is not an elder because his head is grey. His age may be ripe, but he is called old and wan. He in whom there is truth, virtue, pity, restraint, moderation, he who is free from impurity and is wise, he is called an elder. An envious, stingy, dishonest man does not become respectable by means of much talking only or by beauty of his complexion. Verse number 28. He in whom all this is destroyed and taken out with the very root, he, when freed from hatred and wise, is called respectable. A man is not just if he carries a matter by violence. No, he who distinguishes both right and wrong, who is learned and guides others not by violence, but by the same Dhamma, being a guardian of the Dhamma and intelligent, he is called just. Very succinct definition of who is a just person. A man is not learned simply because he talks much. He who is patient, free from hatred and fear, is called learned. Verse number 31. A man is not a supporter of the Dhamma because he talks much. Even if a man has learned little but sees the Dhamma bodily, he is supporter of the Dhamma, a man who never neglects the Dhamma. If a man find a prudent companion who walks with him, is wise and lives soberly, he may walk with him, overcoming all dangers, happy but considerate. Verse number 33. If a man finds no prudent companion to walk with him, is wise and lives soberly, let him walk alone like a king who has left his conquered country behind like an elephant in the forest. 34. It is better to live alone. There is no companionship with a fool. Let a man walk alone. Let him commit no sin with few wishes like an elephant in the forest. If the occasion arises, friends are pleasant, enjoyment is pleasant. Whatever be the cause, a good work is pleasant. Whatever be the cause, a good work is pleasant in the hour of death. The giving up of all grief is pleasant. Pleasant in the world is the state of a mother. Pleasant the state of a father. Pleasant the state of a samana. Pleasant is virtue lasting to old age. Pleasant is a faith firmly rooted. Pleasant is attainment of intelligence. Pleasant is avoiding of obscene. Verse number 38. He who walks in the company of fools suffers a long way. Company with fools, as with an enemy, is always painful. Company with the wise is pleasure, like meeting with kinfolk. 39. Therefore, one ought to follow the wise, the intelligent, the learned, the much enduring, the dutiful, the elect. One ought to follow such a good and wise man as the moon follows the path of the stars. 40. Follow not after vanity, nor after the enjoyment of love and lust. He who is earnest obtains ample joy. Verse number 41. When the learned man drives away vanity by earnestness, he, the wise, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, looks down upon the fools free from sorrow. He looks upon the sorrowing crowd as one that stands on the mountain, looks down upon them that stands upon the plain. The last verse. Earnest among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepers. The wise man advances like a reacher, leaving behind the hack. So you see, this is the longest subpart of this particular part 3, the Buddhist way of life, and it is styled just like how it was styled before when Baba Sahib Ambedkar explained various aspects of what constitute the Buddhist way of life. Here, particularly as we began with reading the what is called the title on wisdom, justice, and good company. You see, Buddhism is always talked about in terms of prajna or wisdom, but very rarely the Buddhism is talked in terms of the justice. And here and elsewhere in the Buddhism, Baba Sahib Ambedkar has talked about Buddha's Dhamma as a perfect justice, not just justice, but also perfect justice. And that has a connotation to, keep the good company. So you see these pithy words like be wise. So, this is the, exhortation by, the Buddha. He's always asking us to be wise, be just, and choose good company. And it is all related together, If we are all the time keeping the company of the fools, if we are keeping the company of those who are not walking on the same path as we are planning to walk, or we are walking, then we tend to become fools, and that is what this particular beautiful section is explaining, that if you cannot find your equal, if you cannot find somebody who is more intelligent or more wiser than you, then it's better to stay alone instead of having the company and companionship with a fool. So you see, this is very interesting. And this verse number 3, as if addresses the fundamental question about our relationship with other people, in terms of how we should choose our friends. So you see, now let's look at this verse number 3. If you see a man who shows you what is to be avoided. So you see, the people, like, let's take the example of a good friend. Even if Baba Sahib Ambedkar is gone, but he is still a good friend. And let's look at his life and personality, in terms of a man who shows you what is to be avoided. So all the time, Baba Sahib Ambedkar has tried to show what is to be avoided. And on the other hand, he has also reproved many times. He was somebody who would be very strict when the people were doing wrong things. When his followers were doing wrong things, Baba Sahib Ambedkar was very exceptionally critical of them. And he's intelligent. Of course, he had this tremendous intelligence. Follow that wise man as you would one who tells of hidden treasures. You see, very beautifully explained, this verse number 3. They also follow that man who is like, telling you what is to be avoided. He cautions you what are the dangers, and he's intelligent. So, we have to follow him because, he may lead to, we are in search of some hidden treasure. He might lead us to that hidden treasure that we are trying to pursue. It will be better, not worse, for him who follows him. So, it's always going to be better for us to follow such a person. Always going to be better for someone who follows such a person who is, like a wise man, and who is a wise man, as we can see here, that somebody who knows what is to be avoided, somebody who knows where to be critical, somebody who is an intelligent person. So, verse number 4 is the amplification of verse number 3. Let him admonish, let him teach, let him forbid what is improper. He will be beloved of the good. By the bad, he will be hated. You see, very, very clear sort of a follow-up from the verse number 3 as to, let such a man admonish us, let him teach us, let him forbid what is improper. he will be beloved of the good. So whoever trying to seek good in the world, whoever trying to pursue good in the world, that man will be beloved by, he will be beloved of the good. By the bad, he will be hated. So you see, verse number 5 is again the amplification of verse number 3, 4. Do not have evildoers for friends. Do not have low people for friends. Have virtuous people for friends. Have for friends the best of men. So you see, always try to seek the company of the best people. Always try to read, the best people. Always try to understand the best people. I think that is the key here. It's in terms of bringing ourselves in contact with something higher, something sublime, something wise, something intelligent, something that something that can guide us through the thick and thin of life. Now this is verse number 6 is very beautiful. He who drinks in the Dhamma lives happily with a serene mind. So the more we understand, or the more we practice the Dhamma, the more we go in the depth of the Buddha's teachings. That's a sure, short way to be happy with a serene mind. That happiness comes with a tranquility. That mind that we can call it's a bliss. It's not something that pleasant sensation that we get by the stimulation of our sense doors. But here, the happiness is coming out of one's deep involvement, deep practice of the Dhamma. And that's the people who practice the Dhamma lives happily with a serene mind. It's not just happiness, but it's also the deep peace, deep serenity. You cannot separate the happiness with the peace. This the peaceful mind, it all is always at ease. And when our minds are at ease, the minds are happy. And when that happens when we practice the Dhamma deeply. So verse number 6 is like the further extension of how important it is for us to live in the company of somebody who can guide us on the right path. And of course, that path is the path of the Dhamma, because the Kalyan Mitra word is always linked with the practice of the Dhamma. The sage rejoices always in the Dhamma as preached by the elect. You see, so the elect means the people who have gone forth and they have realized the Dhamma in their own lives. They are not just talking about the Dhamma, they have realized, they have embodied the teachings of the Buddha, the Dhamma. So the sage, the Muni, always rejoices in the Dhamma as preached by the elect. So you see, the Dhamma, of course, creates happiness, and the more we engage with the Dhamma, the more happiness it creates, the more serenity it creates. And that is what is the implication of this beautiful verse in verse number 6. He who drinks in the Dhamma lives happily with a serene mind. The sage rejoices always in the Dhamma as preached by the elect. The 7 is about what we should do in our lives. The verse number 7. Well makers lead the water. Like those people who digs the well, or who are experts in making the wells, they lead the water wherever they like the canals. In the ancient time, there were people who were making the canals or building the canals, and they knew how to guide the water in various fields or farms. So well makers know that. Fletchers bend the arrow. The fletchers know how to bend the arrow, because that's an art, how to bend a reed into an arrow. Carpenters bend a log of wood, and the carpenters, we know that they are experts in bending the log of a wood. But what does a wise man do? Wise people fashion themselves, isn't it? So to culture themselves, to make them wise, we have to similarly make efforts like the well makers do. And the fletchers bend the arrow, or the carpenters bend a log of wood. So what is implied here is that one doesn't become wise just by doing nothing. For becoming wise, one has to deeply involved in efforts, making efforts. So you see, this word fashion themselves itself connotes the action, itself connotes the the efforts that one needs to take in order to become wise. So you're not born wise, you're not born wise. You are not wise by circumstances. You are not wise by situations or by luck. When one has to strive hard to fashion themselves into the wise people. In other words, they have to strive hard to practice the Dhamma. You see, it goes on in the discussion continues with owing of these different words together. It's like a garland of the verses that Baba Ambedkar has woven here. So you see, the verse number 8 goes like this: as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind. So when there is a wind, the solid rock is not shaken. The wise people falter not amidst blame and praise. You see, this blame and praise are part of the what is called the 8 worldly Dhamma. So there are like 4 pairs: the blame and praise, suffering and happiness, loss and gain, and people. There is another pair. So there are 8 worldly winds. They are called the Loka Dhamma. They are called the worldly winds. They blow all the time. Sometimes we are blamed, sometimes we are praised, sometimes we gain, sometimes we lose. Sometimes we are happy, sometimes we feel pain, sometimes, we lose something, sometimes we gain something. So you see, these worldly winds are flowing all the time, and the worldly winds, when they flow, we are shaken. But a wise man is never shaken because he knows the nature of the world is like that. That is the Loka Dhamma. That is the Swabha of the world. That is the way the world is, It's always not going to praise you. It's going to censure you sometimes. You are not always going to be a winner. Sometimes you will lose. And these worldly characteristics are all there around us. So you see this verse number 8, as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise people falter not amidst blame and praise. We can look at, while we study this, we can look at the example of Dr. Baba Ambedkar himself. He was one of the most hated person by the media, dominated by his opponents, so much so that they blamed him for everything, but he was unshaken. He was never moved. He was like a rock solid. He in fact said that I'm like a rock, I'm not going to dissolve in any water, isn't it? And that is what we see in the character of Baba Ambedkar, or the people who are great, the people who have gone to that level. As a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, the wise people falter not amidst blame and praise. Wise people, after they have listened to the Dhamma, become serene, like a deep, smooth, and still lake. What a potent imagery we see here. What a beautiful way of teaching the Dhamma. You see, the wise people, after they have listened to the Dhamma, so when the wise people listen to the Dhamma, what happens to them? They become serene, like a deep, smooth, and still lake. Just stay with that imagery for some time, and you will begin to understand, the way the Buddha teaches his Dhamma. A wise man is like a very deep person, very smooth and still, like a lake. Good men indeed walk under all circumstances. Good men speak not out of a desire for sensual gratification. Whether touched by happiness or sorrow, wise people never appear elated or depressed. You see, this is like, as I was telling you, keep the image of Baba Ambedkar in your mind when you read this particular section. Good men indeed walk under all circumstances. They are fearless. They just walk under any circumstances. Nothing can dodge, nothing can move them here and there, nothing can shake them here and there. The good men indeed walk under all circumstances. Good men speak not out of a desire for sensual gratification. They don't speak out of desire for sensual gratification. Whether touched by happiness or sorrow, again the worldly dhammas, the worldly winds, wise people never appear elated or depressed. Now verse number 11. It is sweet as honey, so thinks the fool, while as it, the evil has not ripened. But when the evil ripens, the fool comes to grief. Self-explanatory, so long as the party goes, one is happy. When the party is finished, one is very sad, you see. A fool does not know when he commits his evil deeds, but a wicked man burns by his own deeds as he burned by fire. Self-explanatory. Long is the night to him who is awake. Long is a mile to him who is tired. Long is the life to the foolish who do not know the true Dhamma. You see, this is the beauty of the Buddha's teachings as to how we should live. We live as if we are never going to age. We live as if we are never going to die. We think that there is still life left. There is a lot of life left. There are so much time in my hand. But it is not so, as this verse number 13 shows us. It is like, fool who thinks that the life is long, but in fact it's not. It can cut short any time, any moment. 14, if a travel does not meet with one who is his better or equal, let him firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with fool. Now verse number 15, one of the very beautiful gathas from the Dhamma, puto matti dhanam matti iti balo vihanti atai attano natti kuto putto kuto dhanam. This is in Pali. In English, it's very beautiful. These sons belong to me, puto matti, me atti, and this wealth belongs to me, dhanang atti. With such thoughts of fool is tormented. Iti balo vihanati. He himself does not belong to himself. Atai attano natti. He doesn't belong to himself. How much less puto putto kuto dhanang. It's a beautiful translation. The fool who knows his foolishness is wise, at least so far. But a fool who thinks himself wise, he is called a fool indeed. You see, if we know that we don't know, is good. If we claim that we know, even if we don't know, we are fools. So this is a lesson in understanding anything, in learning anything, not to pretend that we know. If we don't know, we don't know. And that's a good state of mind. Not knowing is also a wonderful state of mind, because then our minds are open to know. Isn't it? But if we believe that we know everything, if we believe that there is no scope for learning, there is no scope for development. There is no scope to be wiser. So knowing that I don't know is very important. But to claim while not knowing something, to know, is a sign of a fool. If a fool be associated with a wise man, even all his life, he will perceive the truth as little as the spoon perceives the taste of a soup. Very beautiful. It's from Dhammapada. So this 18. If an intelligent man be associated for 1 minute only with a wise man, he will soon perceive the truth as the tongue perceive the taste of the soup. You see the difference between the spoon and the tongue, isn't it? So you see, it's a very beautiful simile, the way of presenting the things, the way of using the language to communicate very, very important thoughts. So we have to decide whether we want to be a spoon or we want to be a tongue to taste the soup. And most of the times we are like spoons, with just dwindling in this pot, but never ever understanding what does it mean, what does it taste like. Fools of poor understanding have themselves for their greatest enemies, for they do evil deeds which bear bitter fruits. You see, the fools don't need enemies outside. They are their own enemies. And it's also self-explanatory as how our foolish mind, as to how our stupidity can lead us to astray, can lead us to the difficulties which even our greatest enemy might not be able to inflict upon us. That deed is not well done of which a man must repent, and the reward of which he receives crying and with a tearful face. No, that deed is well done of which a man does not repent. So anything after doing it, you don't repent. And when the reward of which of that deed comes back, you receive it with gladness and cheerfully, that's a good deed. So you see what is a bad deed and what is a evil, good deed. Very beautifully, explained here. You see, if we continue to read the Buddha and his Dhamma, if you continue to engage with the Buddha and his Dhamma, when you read the parts and, when you go on reading continuously the different sections of the Buddha and his Dhamma, a lot of things becomes very clear. A lot of terminologies become very clear. A lot of things fall in place. Like, sometimes we wonder what are good deeds, what are bad deeds. Here is a definition. That deed is not well done of which a man must repent, and the reward of which he receives crying and with a tearful face. 21. No, that deed is well done of which a man does not repent, and the reward of which he receives gladly and cheerfully. So you see, as long as the evil deed done does not bear fruit, the fool thinks it is like honey, but when it ripens, then the fool suffers grief. Explain, self-explanatory. And when the evil deed, after it has become known, turns to sorrow for the fool, then it destroys his bright lot, nay, it cleaves his head. Let the fool wish for a false reputation, for precedence among the bhikkhus, for lordship in the convents, for worship among other people. You see, this is what we are not supposed to do if we want to be wise. We don't have to seek reputation. We don't have to seek precedence among others. We don't have to seek lordship. We don't have to seek worship, by the other people. But a fool, if we have to identify a fool, this is the criteria to identify the fool. They seek the false reputation. They try to take precedence over other people. They want to lord over you. They want to be worshipped by other people. A man is not an elder because his head is gray. His age may be ripe, but he is called old and wan. He in whom there is truth, virtue, pity, restraint, moderation. He who is free from impurity and is wise, he is called an elder. So, and in the Buddha's times, there were monks who were called the elders, like Sariputra, Mahamoggalayan, and they were in age, they were elder than the Buddha, and they commanded definite respect, and they were called elders. And the people tried to claim that they are elders because of their age, and that's where the Buddha has to caution them that because of your gray hair, you don't become the elder. Only when you have there is truth, virtue, pity, restraint, moderation. He who is free from impurity and is wise is called an elder. An envious, stingy, dishonest man does not become respectable by means of much talking only, or by beauty of his complexion. You see, very important. Beauty of his complexion means sometimes we are moved by the way people look. We are in the grip of the people who are good looking, like, for example, the actresses, actors, and so on and so forth, because some people talk, a lot, and they talk nicely. They don't become respectable by virtue of that. He in whom all is destroyed, all this is destroyed and taken out with the very root. He, when freed from hatred and is wise, is called respectable. A man is not just if he carries a matter by violence. Very important. This is very important. You see, the verse number 29 is very important. I'm going to read it and going to gloss over some of the aspect of verse number 29. A man is not just if he carries a matter by violence. No, he who distinguishes both right and wrong. Isn't it? So that person is just person only when he knows how to distinguish between right and wrong. That is not enough only to make judgment between the right and wrong. Who is learned and guides others, not by violence, but by the same Dhamma. You see, Dhamma is the truth, is the principle that's there. Being a guardian of the Dhamma and intelligent, he is called just. Very beautiful definition of just. A man is not learned simply because he talks much. He who is patient, free from hatred and fear is called learned. A man is not a supporter of the Dhamma because he talks much, even if a man has learned little but sees the Dhamma bodily. You see, we sometimes talk about the Dhamma in terms of some abstract things, but seeing the Dhamma begins with seeing the body, with being aware of the body, understanding the nature of the body. Isn't it? So the Buddha's Dhamma doesn't begin with the abstract thinking. It begins with observing the nature of the body, the nature of the mind, and understanding the quality of the body and mind. So you see, but sees the Dhamma bodily. He is support of the Dhamma, a man who never neglects Dhamma. This is very beautiful verses. How if we don't find a good company, what we should do. A man finds a prudent companion who walks with him, is wise and lives soberly, and he may walk with him, overcoming all dangers, happy but considerate. If a man finds no prudent companion to walk with him, is wise and lives soberly, let him walk alone like a king who has left his conquered country behind, like an elephant in the forest. It is better to live alone. There is no companionship with a fool. Let a man walk alone. Let him commit no sin with few wishes, like an elephant in the forest. If the occasion arises, friends are pleasant, enjoyment is pleasant, whatever be the cause. A good work is pleasant, whatever be the cause. A good work is pleasant in the hour of death. The giving up of all grief is pleasant. Pleasant in the world is the state of a mother, pleasant the state of a father, pleasant the state of a samana. Pleasant is virtue lasting to old age. Pleasant is a faith firmly rooted. Pleasant is attainment of intelligence. Pleasant is avoiding of sin. He who walks in the company of fools suffers a long way. Company with fools, as with an enemy, is always painful. Company with the wise is pleasure, like meeting with king pox. Self-explanatory. We can all understand what the Buddha is teaching here. The conclusion of this section is this, that therefore one ought to follow the wise, the intelligent, the learned, and the much enduring, the dutiful, the elect. One ought to follow such a good and wise man as the moon follows the path of the stars. Follow not after vanity, not after the enjoyment of love and lust. He who is earnest obtains ample joy. See, if we are following the Dhamma, we obtain the joy ample enough, to avoid all this sensuality. When the learned man drives away vanity by earnestness, he, the wise, climbing the terraced heights of wisdom, looks down upon the fools. Free from sorrow, he looks upon the sorrowing world, sorrowing crowd, as one that stand on the mountain looks down upon them that stand upon the plain. Earnest among the thoughtless. This is how we describe a wise man. Who is a wise man? Earnest among the thoughtless, awake among the sleepers. The wise man advances like a richer, leaving behind the hat. So you see, this is the end of the subpart 7 of the part 3 of the book 4 of the Buddha and his Dhamma, and we can begin to see as to how, if we continue to read and engage with the text, understand it, learn it, gloss over it, think about it, discuss with others, we can begin to see that this Buddha and his Dhamma offers a complete guide to our own being, to our own welfare. But not just that, it offers a way for the world to be more better, to be more just, to be more human. And that is what is the beauty of the Buddha and his Dhamma and the Buddhist way of life. That is how we Buddhists should live our lives, based on what has been so beautifully underlined here in all these beautiful subparts of this part 3, the Buddhist way of life, of the part of the book 4 of the Buddha and his Dhamma. So I will take a pause here and open up the class for any discussion or anything that any of you would like to share.
So in the verses,
Yes.
it is we should have prajna or wisdom, whatever we do. Like in verse number 16, the fool who knows his foolishness is wise at least so far. But a fool who thinks himself wise, he is called a fool indeed. The person should know. He doesn't know he is fool and he doesn't know the thing, and so he must have some intellect to decide, to know what is his status. Otherwise, he doesn't understand that he is fool.
True.
Unless he knows that, he will not rise up from that state.
True. That's right. Alkatai. So knowing what we don't know is very important, and accepting that we don't know is also very important, isn't it? So there is always a scope to know, to learn, to develop, to grow. Good, Alkatai. Good.
Differentiate. We should know what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
The right will stands first.
Yes.
So more we'll read and attend such lectures, then we able to know what is right. Because as an individual, we have lots of barriers, and we feel ourselves well sufficient with the knowledge. But exploring the things can realize us that yes, there is a lot to learn.
Yes. That is true. That is true. And that is how, this continuous engagement is very important. Because as I was, I tell often in the class that reading Buddha and Dhamma is not, like reading any other book. We have to slow down. We have to imbibe. We have to drink deeply into what is written there. We have to engage ourselves. In other words, we don't have to become a spoon. We have to become a tongue if we want to taste the soup.
Yes, we have to digest each words.
Exactly. So this is what is this beauty of Buddha and Dhamma, continuous reading, engaging with it, and experiencing the what the Buddha taught, and how Baba Sahib Ambedkar tried to communicate what the Buddha taught. So I think it's very important for us to, as you said, the more we engage, the more we read, the more we deep drink, the more we deeply drink into the Buddha and his Dhamma, the more we know what is right, what is wrong, what is justice, what is injustice, what is how it is to act in the world, and how to build the communities and how to heal the communities. It's all there in the Buddhism.
Yes, sir, true.
So anybody
having deep knowledge of everything doesn't matter, but one must understand the right things, because sometimes people say that we cannot follow Panchashil. So why to do first and the last precept? They don't accept. It is not for us. Common man cannot follow. So there is defect in the understanding.
Yeah.
I think struggle is to convert information into wisdom.
True.
Yeah.
But as we have seen in the previous sections of the Buddha and Dhamma, the way Baba Ambedkar has talked about the 5 precepts in terms of the standards to judge our behavior. And, we know that it's very difficult for people to practice the Panchashil because, they are the qualities of the Buddha, and that is how when the more we practice the Sila, the more we are like the Buddha. But it's not easy. So what Baba Ambedkar says that, the standard should be there in our life. And then only we know when we fail. So we are going to fail. But, if we don't know that we have failed, then there is no chance of progress. So I think even sociologically to have Panchashil in the community, that people are talking about it. People are talking about that framework. People are talking about that standard to know our behavior or to measure our behavior is a good enough to begin.
But most of the time, what is happening, we come across with the fools only, what I have experienced. So how to deal with such type of the situation? It is very difficult to separate with them, like colleagues or some relatives.
Yes, we have to continuously find a ways to reach out to them. It's not because the Buddha's Dhamma is not about just being alone. Buddha is saying to be alone in a context. He's saying not to live in the company of the fool. He's saying that even if you want to become wise, you have to avoid the company of the fool. That doesn't mean that we don't engage with the fools, that we don't talk to them, that we don't try to convince them, or we don't try to understand their point of view. I think the Buddha's teaching begins with understanding the point of view of others. As we have seen in several texts, several suttas, the Buddha begins by asking questions. Sometimes he begins with asking the people's point of view. And then he goes on subtly changing that point of view to the view that is right view. Isn't it? So I think the task for us here is to have a continuous striving to reach out to other people. And as we have seen in the previous section, what we try to see in others, if we can embody that within us, we have already tried to win those people over. Isn't it? So sometimes we might, even if whatever, if we are surrounded by fools or whatever, it doesn't mean that we have to discard the humanity. We have to let them go. We have to find a ways to continuously engage with that. And in other words, we have to continuously strive to become better and better, more wiser, so that people will try to, follow us, follow our example.
But sometimes because of ego and considering themselves as very wise, I heard people even talking that Panchashili is very difficult and why Baba Sahib has given us these 5 precepts like this also.
No, there are always people like that. There will be always people like that. But our aim is to continuously strive hard, right? There will be always people like that. Always, always,
Yes.
always.
I think we should don't judge the people. We should put our efforts to improving ourselves only. No,
Yes.
that should be the goal.
Yes, and we have to teach whatever we can teach. Whatever we know, we can easily share. Like I have been telling all of you from the
Yes.
day one, that whatever you understand of the Buddha and Dhamma, please share with others. Please encourage others to read. Isn't it? So you see, when we try to communicate something, we are already learning it. This, for example, conducting these classes has been so gratifying for me. It is not about you, it is about me, because I begin to read, I begin to understand. I try to go into it. So it's good for me. You see, so the teaching is not about always about others, it's about the person who also tries to teach. You see what I'm trying to tell? So I would say that whatever circumstances are, we should try to communicate what we know, what we understand.
There is famous quote also regarding this. If one teaches, two learns.
Yes. That's very true. So anything else from anybody before? I think we got another 13 minutes to go. And if there is anything that anybody would like to share or comment or just reflect, please go ahead.
Now we have to explore this Buddha and his Dhamma to inculcate in our daily life. Can we engage the things that we are reading and we are just grasping it intellectually? We are getting sound, but it should reflect in our day-to-day and in every actions or moments. Means I think I able to convey my feelings.
No, I got it. I see this the Buddhism begins with study. We have to know before we do, isn't it? So the Buddha has always talked about understanding the Dhamma correctly, to know the Dhamma correctly, to know the Buddha and his Dhamma. I think what we are doing is trying to know. The more we know better, the more it comes into our day-to-day life. So knowing, is paradoxically cannot be separated by doing. Knowing and doing go hand in hand, isn't it?
True.
Or
We have to make the road maps like that now, that such practices, if we keep on we are not in touch with so many people who are deeply following all these things, so we can learn from them.
Yes.
From these classes we are learning a lot.
Yes.
And getting the things.
for verse number 8, example of Baba Sahib is very good. As a solid rock, he is not shaken by the wind. The wise people falter not amidst blame and praise. Because throughout his life, Baba Sahib was blamed, he was hated. Still, he did not deviate from his aim, goal.
True. Very true. Alkamana. So, all right, I think we have come to the end. Vidyanand, you want to say something? Subhash. Okay, Subhash, go on.
Yeah, thank you.
You are looking like you are coming from some different planet.
Thank you so much. Yeah, some virtual, because of the virtual background.
No problem.
Yeah, this is nice learning. And very good explanation by Mangesh sir. To my understanding, this knowing or not knowing, suppose I claim that I know something. Within knowing is also, it is a very long spectrum of knowing. Within knowing, suppose I tell I know Newton's law. if I am able to tell the statement of the Newton's law, that is one level. After that, if I am able to tell or explain Newton's law in my own wordings in different ways to another person, then this is a higher level comprehension of Newton's law. Then if I am able to apply this Newton's law and demonstrate, then that is another level of knowing the Newton's law. Further that, if some system is given and I am able to identify, I am able to analyze where Newton's law is working, then that is another level of knowing the Newton's law. Further that, if I am able to come up with new system where using Newton's law, some machine, etc., I am going to solve the problem of humankind. So that is another level of knowing the Newton's law. And then after that, if I am extending the Newton's law as a research outcomes and further opening the new horizon, that is the another level of knowing the Newton's law. So within knowing, there is a spectrum. So, quantity wise and as well as quantity wise, this is one aspect of knowing, that is called cognitive domain. After that, we have a psychomotor where we are able to activity based doing the something. Third one is the affective domains, like if I have receptivity towards Baba Sahib's writing and speeches, that is why I am here. And that is the first level of knowing something. It begins, yes, I am in a mode of learning. Then comes respond. Now I am responding. This is another level of engaging myself in knowing. So of course there are different levels, and that is not a reason to explain all those things. But these things I can connect what Lord Buddha has explained and Baba Sahib has documented and coming up with. And thank you, Mangesh sir, for explaining it. Thank you so much.
That was a very nice comment, and it explains a lot of things. Thank you, Subhash bhai.
Thank you.
I think Vidyanand wanted to ask something, but he has some connection issues. Or just wanted to say, in present age of internet, what is it? Present internet, the ideal wise man, perhaps not the actual man, but it could be a program algorithm which one gets exposed. In such a situation, it's really impossible for a person to shield oneself from wrongness and to opt to make a choice which are wise and right. Besides this, increasing our brain is becoming individualized in such a way state, people have more chance that they will exposed to. Right, good comment.
Jai Bhim, sir.
Shashank.
Yes. So I just want to talk about verse number 31 in that beautiful one line I really like, that a man who never neglects the Dhamma. That 31 ends with that. So I will say that, if I able to connect with the Dhamma on a daily basis, and then if I not able to connect with Dhamma on daily basis, definitely there is a vacuum created in the mind. There is a suffering created in the mind, because whenever we go away from the Dhamma, we're not able to read Buddha and his Dhamma, we're not able to listen to any discourses, or we're not able to practice it, because we tend to get busy in our daily life, in our project schedules, in office and everything. And then the vacuum creates, then the suffering creates in the mind, and then the mind not able to produce that happiness. Even if you want happiness, we're not able to produce the happiness. And that's why we, as a wise man, Baba Sahib said that a man who never neglects the Dhamma, even if a man has learned a little, but sees the Dhamma bodily, he he sees the Dhamma in his own body, he sees the Dhamma in his own experience rather. So whatever the verses we have gone through now today, so we have to see those Dhamma in our every bodily experiences, because every thoughts produces chemicals in our body, and these verses will definitely produce a very happy chemicals in our body for sure. And that's why we have to see the Dhamma every day. And one of the wonderful discussion we had just 5 minutes before, that how we can become the example or how we can become a role model. So I just want to, like, with your permission, last class we had a wonderful verse. I just want to reflect on that. So oneself, they say, is hard to control. If one shapes oneself according to as one counsels others, thus well-controlled one will have control over others. So I think in our society, we definitely always have a habit or habitual way of counseling others, giving advice to others, or rather we can say that we always have a habit of giving the free advice, but then we never become example in front of them. We never become a role model in front of them. I think that's where the practice begins, that we need to, like, become a role model and become an example, and then our Dhamma will see on a body with Dhamma see in action, and then people will definitely get attracted towards us, and then we definitely able to counsel other, we can help other, we can help them to get rid of their suffering, get rid of their depression, get rid of their whatever the challenges in their life.
Yes.
So that's how we can look at it. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. It was good comment, Shashank. Very good comment. Lovely comment. So
Doing meditation also helps
yes.
daily basis,
Yes.
because we cannot be every time, every person.
You can observe your body, you can observe your breathing, and you can do whatever in terms of observing your mind, or just to sit, it's helpful.
Yeah.
So I think we have come to the end of our class, and we will meet next week again the same time. And thank you so much for joining in today, and see you in the next class.
Jai Bhim. Thank you.
Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, sir.
Jai
Jai Bhim, all of you.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim to all.